Welcome to the Social Business Engine podcast, where today's thought leaders discuss how they're using the latest social media strategies and technologies in marketing, sales, customer service, and HR. Get ready to be inspired as our guests contribute to your digital transformation through their stories, knowledge, and insights into what works in today's digitally connected world. And now, here's Bernie Borges, your host of the Social Business Engine podcast.
Hey there, welcome to episode 183. I'm Bernie Borges, CMO of Vengreso and your host of the Social Business Engine podcast. Hey, as always, thanks for listening. On this episode, I am excited to bring you my conversation with Jorge Solorio. Jorge is the Industrial Americas Business Manager at Lubrizol Advanced Materials, where he is responsible for both marketing and sales for a product line that you are going to hear all about. Now, on this episode, Jorge explains how he led a strategic initiative to launch an online destination that is centered on this one dedicated product within a big company, and how he is achieving alignment between sales and marketing, and he's got the results to prove it. Now, this episode is in cooperation with Frost Sullivan. Vengreso has partnered with Frost Sullivan on the launch of the Sales Team Alpine Retreat, also known as STAR for short, and we are proud to be a partner of this event. In fact, our CEO, Mario Martinez Jr., is going to be presenting a session on digital selling strategies and tactics. Now, if you're not familiar with the Frost Sullivan STAR Executive MindXchange, you're missing an amazing opportunity to participate in what is going to be the most important sales leadership think tank ever. It is an interactive and collaborative and PowerPoint-free event to brainstorm, benchmark, and generate action plans with fellow sales leaders across a variety of different industries. So I encourage you to join us at STAR this February 7th through the 9th, 2018 in beautiful Lake Tahoe, Nevada, to mix and mingle with forward-thinking sales executives and thought leaders. And hey, as an event partner, we are excited to extend a $250 savings to all Vengreso subscribers. So for more info on that, just go to frost.com/Vengreso. Again, frost.com/Vengreso, and of course, we will link that up in the show notes page. So now, here's my conversation with Jorge Solorio. Jorge, welcome to the Social Business Engine podcast.
Hey, I'm happy to be here, Bernie, to have a conversation with you and your audience. Thank you for the invitation.
Oh, absolutely. As you know, we were talking before we started recording. I've been wanting to get this on the schedule for quite some time. You and I had the pleasure of meeting in person at Content Marketing World back in September.
Yes.
And I knew that you had a story that I wanted to share with my listeners. So let's just begin with a brief introduction to the company that you work for, Lubrizol. Who is Lubrizol?
Sure. Lubrizol is a company that was founded in 1928. We're a large chemical company. We do polymers. We sell a lot of products. And I particularly represent one of the product lines named Corzan.
Okay, and that is what we're here to discuss today. So, brief introduction to Corzan. So, that's a specific product within the Lubrizol family. Is that right?
Correct. Lubrizol has a lot of different products, and Corzan is just one of those products. It's basically CPVC, chlorinated polyvinyl chloride. It's like if you're familiar with PVC, this is a post-chlorinated product for higher temperatures and chemical handling.
Okay, sounds technical, but we're going to go with it. All right, so what I found interesting, and the reason that I wanted to have this podcast recording with you, Jorge, is because you told me that you launched a dedicated web property for Corzan, and I don't see that every day. A lot of companies have their corporate website. In your case, that's Lubrizol. And then all the products underneath that. But in your case, you launched a dedicated dedicated web property for this product. So first of all, let's start with why. Why did you do that? What was the strategy behind that decision?
Sure. What we found out, Bernie, is that Lubrizol, since it's a big property and the focus is to our manufacturers that actually buy raw material compounds. And Corzan is more of an end user product or a B2B. So we had the need to talk to the audience. Well, Corzan.com does a great job to do for that technical area. Lubrizol was more of a compound and raw material site, and I needed more of an application product site where I can educate the audience.
Okay, so you mentioned that Corzan is a B2B product. So who is the business end user of the product?
Correct. Our target audience are maintenance managers for chemical plants, like a power generation plant, a mineral processing plant, or a wastewater treatment plant or manufacturer. And our audience is mainly the operation managers that have to keep up the plant running. That's our target audience, and the new website is targeted to that specific audience. And our whole purpose is to have an area where we can expand in the topics and educate the audience on different best practices on application and product selection, and not necessarily just talk about Lubrizol, but talk about their needs and their requirements.
Okay, and so how did you go about defining their needs and their requirements in order to determine what content you would create and publish on the Corzan web property?
That was pretty interesting. We did have a research out there and looked at our different market segments, or market driven. And if you look at, let's say, a mineral processing, which is part of mining or power generation, we look to see who's actually touching our product. And the person that most likely uses our product is an engineer in that space. And Lubrizol.com was not servicing that particular area, because on that property, we talk about our company, our product offerings at the polymer side. And Corzan.com talks about the actual application side of it. So talking to that audience of the operator, the maintenance manager, has been key to us versus, let's say distribution or, product manufacturing, which we did on other properties.
Interesting. So the first thought that comes to my mind, and maybe my listener as well, is how did you sell that? I mean, you had to go through a process to sell the idea and get funding for it. So you want to give some insight into what that looked like?
Sure. It's interesting. We launched, we're going into 2 years now. But let's say 2 years ago, we started with a regular WordPress property under Corzan.com. And what we mainly did, we were talking about our technical manual, and we put in some recommendations on pressure, some tables. Keep it very simple, very technical. What we noticed, the longer we went on the technical explanation, the more audience we started, getting people following us. So we started very small in a WordPress application. And then from there, it started to grow, and now today we migrated into a HubSpot platform, and our audience just keeps on growing.
Okay, cool. So were there any implications in terms of any culture shifts, any culture requirements, any I'm really curious to know, like, how you evolved from that WordPress that was on Lubrizol to a dedicated web property, and just any insight you can share with my listener on, how it was sold. I mean, you gave some insight already, but I'm looking for a little more in terms of the process and how long was it? Did you encounter any obstacles, any pushback, that kind of thing, any culture wars? And I don't mean to make it negative or hostile. It's not what I mean, but you know what I mean. I'm trying to get at sort of that. How did you accomplish that? Because not a lot of companies can do that.
Yes, Bernie, that's the interesting part of it. When I did go with the WordPress, that was actually done on the side, and it was mainly a solo experiment. We're at Lubrizol, we're encouraged to try new things. So we put in a website out there. At first, our management and even our sales staff didn't really understand or understand where we were going with this. We were evolving into it. But we started with the technical manual putting out there, and then we started to write some blogs, and it started to get some traction. But at the beginning, it was just very few, a handful of people involved. It was mainly me driving it. I did have a technical manager helping me interpret, some of the writing and making sure we were there. We didn't have a budget per se for digital, Bernie. We had a traditional budget for media, like media partners, where magazines, and we had ads. We did, trade shows. So we used some of those funds to fund this initiative. And the key thing that really made it click for our internal buy-in, the stakeholders, they were able to see that we can measure the performance, get some KPIs out of it. Because some of the other traditional media, you really can't track it or can't really see where it goes. So as that started to come in and we were able to provide, how many leads are coming in, a little bit warmer leads, then you started to get excitement even with our own sales staff, because the sales have always complained that marketing doesn't produce quality leads, or the leads that we provide to them are not going anywhere, and it's actually a drain on resources. So what we started to do is to make sure we qualify the people that were coming in and talk to them a little bit more. And that's kind of how it kind of started. And then early last year, we added a lead coordinator, someone that kind of will look through the leads and determine what needs to happen with those leads. So they get a phone call, do they get passed on to the sales staff? And that, and to us, was very critical to determine if our sales team will get the lead, because it costs money, quite frankly, to send someone to a plant or do a call if it's not ready, it's not on the right time. And keep in mind that a lot of these prospects, they're in their early stages, so they're learning about the product, so they might not be ready to receive an appointment from us.
Okay, so that gives me some really good insights. I want to go a little bit further on that. So you mentioned that you go through a qualification process, and is the qualification process what you just described with the lead coordinator, where they actually sort of qualify the lead? Is that what you meant by that?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And at the beginning, we were running just a regular website, and the leads were coming in just through email. We were picking it through MailChimp. We had like an add-on and kind of keeping a list, but we quickly found out that system was not robust enough. And by then, I'm already into like content marketing. I'm starting to read about it, follow podcasts and things of that sort. So I started to understand a little bit more what it takes. It's a lot more detail than I first imagined. And it took more time. At that time, consistency was not our strength, because we still had to run the business. We still had to run sales and management and strategy. So we knew we needed to help, get someone to help us, organize and write the content and have that. So we hired, just last year, actually this year, in January, we hired a marketing firm to help us, write some of the blogs and some of the articles and longer pieces like ebooks. But by then, we already had, our sales team bought in and our customers bought in, and we had market experts that can contribute to the content. So we were able to put these case studies and these best practices and share them with our public. And now we have a professional blog, articles, and then we publish once a week. When before we probably did one kind of an article a year, now we are constantly publishing minimum of one per week today.
Fantastic. Love the story. So, so Jorge, where I want to go next is, it sounds to me like the progression of your story can lead to some insight into how you and your team, which is a marketing team, have integrated and collaborated with sales. So can you kind of talk about what's the impact been on, what we call at Vengreso, we call that, and we're not the only ones, of course, that refer to it this way, but alignment of marketing and sales, right? Which is a huge challenge for so many organizations. So can you speak to what's the impact been on marketing and sales alignment for you?
That's an interesting thing. I come from the sales side. So my primary responsibility is business and sales side. Marketing is kind of like an afterthought. It's kind of, that's where a lot of the confusion came between what is Marcom, what's marketing, what's a trade show. So all that kind of came on under kind of one umbrella. And early this year is when I started to combine, the sales effort and marketing together. So when I look at these marketing efforts, I'm looking at it from a point of the sales side. So because I run the sales team, and on the side I do the marketing. So it's that's how the combination came in. Our company sees it as one. At least my division where I work in the CPVC side, our business is to promote and sell. So that's how that came in. Our staff is located in Canada, through all the U.S., Mexico, Central America, Brazil, Colombia. So we have a diverse sales force, and being digital has helped a lot, for them to get the sales tools that make sense, and for them to use testimonials and be able to quickly show them on a digital way, or show them through links. Other case studies around the world has been very, very helpful. But aligning the sales and marketing has been a initiative that we've been running for at least a year, and it's working really, really good for us.
So how far along would you say you're on that journey? Is it like, what kind of progress do you feel you've made? Is it where you want it to be? Is it not where you want it to be? Again, such a hot topic for my listeners, so maybe you can elaborate a little bit on like where you are in the journey.
We're really good on the journey. I will say from 1 through 10, we're probably in 7. And let me tell you why.
Nice.
Some of the other businesses around our product line, they're already taking this approach. So I can see the influence that our inbound and marketing and social marketing has taken root. So you see sister product lines, taking that on. The other part that comes to this is that we implemented a CRM that from the point of view of the sales staff, not necessarily from the point of view of management like me or the supervisor. I wanted them to have tools where they can do the follow-up, be able to communicate with their marketing firm, or with our marketing counterparts here, and be able to go into the market. Let me give you an example how that kind of works. Through HubSpot, there's a CRM portion of it. We started to implement that, and at the beginning it was challenging because they had to learn one more tool, and we had tried in the past several times and quite didn't go anywhere. But this one did really catch on fire because it was designed by the sales force. I actually had one of my team members, which is in the field, be part of the onboarding and part of the design of how we're going to put the pipeline. So we had a voice from the sales staff on what we needed to do on the pipeline for the CRM portion of it. It's not that complex in as you see it, but we needed to follow up on the leads. But here's what we found out. In the past, when we gave a lead, either something happened with it or it kind of died. Today, both marketing and sales own it together. So our horizon might be 16 months to 2 years to close the sale. So we do need to work together between the marketing, automation, and sales, the activity. So the CRM has been very crucial in making that happen. Where if a lead becomes kind of lukewarm, marketing still keeps on, sending articles, bringing them back into the site. That's been very helpful for us.
Okay, so what I hear you saying, Jorge, is that you've got sales staff and marketing staff under your leadership, so you've been able to really drive that alignment because they're all on your team as one team. Is that right?
Correct. That's correct. Yes, both marketing and sales. I'm responsible for both. Correct.
Okay, fantastic.
That
Okay,
that makes, I think, and that I see the future is there because it's blurring between sales and marketing is becoming one effort, and I think also with resources and being accountable, making sure we have the right performance guidelines and indicators. I think having one person in charge is probably the best way to do it.
well, you that's a chapter out of my playbook. That is vocabulary out of my dictionary that is just, you just reached into my brain and pulled out that thought, Jorge. And I've said this many times, and I can't thank you enough for saying it yourself. And I just want my listener to know that was totally unscripted, right? I mean, we did not plan for that. And what you just said is that the lines between marketing and sales are blurring, and I could not agree with you more. And I've been around a few decades to know and experience firsthand how siloed they have been in years and decades past. And so, we're experiencing the two coming together. That is fantastic. One more point that I'd like to cover before I segue to my summary. You started to allude to this a little bit, but what do you see over the next couple of years, in your plans at Corzan as it relates to everything we just discussed?
Absolutely. We're still optimizing our website. We just launched a brand new website, 3 weeks ago. And the reason we optimize it is to be able to use the automation portion of it. We are going to be implementing video in 2018. So we progressed from having a blog every 2-3 weeks to having a article per week, and then having these long form ebooks that really are premium stuff. Now next year we're incorporating video to it. We're gonna be showing, not just telling, but kind of demonstrating on the application side, and asking questions and answering questions from our audience. That's where we want to take it. And we step back. Our property, our web property, is mainly on educational. That's our number one goal, more than trying to sell on our product line. We're trying to show what our product capabilities are and what is not a good fit for it as well. So you can come into Corzan.com if you run a chemical plant, and you'll be able to know where's a good fit and where's not. I think that's very valuable because a lot of the resources out there, they're promoting their product and only the positives. We want to make sure that our audience knows both sides of the story of our product line. So we're going to be incorporating video and also case studies with our customers and testimonials.
Fantastic. Fantastic. All right. Well, all of that makes a ton of sense, and I'm excited to learn all that and share that here on the Social Business Engine podcast. So what I want to do now is a quick recap of what we discussed. And Jorge, what I'll ask you to do at the end of my recap is to fill in any holes. Maybe if I jog your memory and you want to add something briefly to it, and then we'll bring the podcast episode to a wrap. We began with a brief introduction to Lubrizol, a large chemical company founded back in 1928, so you've been around a few decades. And Corzan is a specific product division, which is CPVC. And so you decided that it made a whole lot of sense to launch a dedicated web property, primarily because Corzan is an end user product, and it was kind of maybe lost in the Lubrizol big web property. Those are my words, not your words. Correct. And you really wanted to target the specific audience that the product targets, and that's maintenance managers at plants such as waste treatment plants and other types of plants, and operations managers. And you wanted to expand on the topics that were previously on the Lubrizol website. And you wanted to really educate, that persona that you're targeting, and educate them on their needs. I asked you how did you learn their needs, and you said you conducted research. You wanted to understand who's using the product, And so once you understood that, you were able to really kind of sell the idea internally. And you started kind of small with a web WordPress property that was connected to the mothership, if you will, the main Lubrizol website. And you discovered that the more technical the content was that you published, the more engagement, the more followers you got. So you started, small, kind of a solo experiment, mostly you, and maybe you had a little help from a writer. But as you started to get some traction, it sounds like you were able to sell the idea of a dedicated web property. We talked a little bit about, sort of what did it take, from a culture standpoint to sell the idea and implement it. And, you said something interesting. You said that at first, both management and sales didn't really understand the direction. So you also said that you're encouraged to experiment a little bit. So it sounds like you reallocated some of the promotional budget that you had available to you. And also, I want to point out that, something you said that's very, very key is that you're responsible for both marketing and sales for the product. So you were able to make the decision to reallocate some promotional budget and fund the initiative, and you really focused on the KPIs that would matter most to sales. So leads is what matters most to sales. And once they started to see that, they started to get excited. You actually implemented a process where you had have a lead coordinator in place to determine what is the appropriate action step for each lead, so that salespeople are spending their time well and not wasting time on people who are very early stage and not ready for sales contact. You also mentioned that as you studied content marketing, you began to really understand from a best practices standpoint some of the things that really need to be done to be successful in the long run. So you engaged outside services to write more content like ebooks and blogs, and really by that point, as you were publishing blog content on a weekly basis and you're generating leads, sales was really bought into it. So we then discussed the impact on your global sales and marketing teams. And, you mentioned you've got staff across North and Central America, and how really this has allowed you to achieve the holy grail, if you will. That's my words, not your words, of the alignment of sales and marketing. You gave yourself a grade of 7 out of 10, which sounds to me like that's well deserving, and maybe selling yourself a little short. We'll see. But you also said, Jorge, that this has been influential on other product lines within the company, and I think that is huge, and probably a huge feather in your cap as well. You also talked about how you implemented a CRM system, and that the CRM was focused on the value to the sales staff as well as how to communicate with marketing. It was designed by someone in sales, so that from the get-go, the CRM system was designed with a voice from the sales staff. And it really allows both marketing and sales to own the lead generation process. And then, of course, probably my favorite thing that in this whole conversation, you mentioned that the lines between marketing and sales truly are blurring, and this really provides a level of accountability that sits on your shoulders, but you're able to have that accountability with success because of the strategy that you've implemented. And then to close it off, you said that over the next couple of years, you're still optimizing the website. You're really focused on continuing to educate the marketplace and your target audience, not directly sell. And by doing so, you're able to generate quality leads, and how next year you're planning to implement video. And so, showing, not just telling, and also ask more questions of the audience and answer those questions, and of course, publish case studies. So that's my summary. Jorge, is there anything that you would like to elaborate on?
Yes, great summary. The only thing, we are also in multiple languages. So we are in Spanish, Portuguese. Early next year, we're going to be in Chinese and Korean. So when we mean we want to be the authority of education, we're serious. We're putting the resources to have a global reach there. Yes.
Fantastic. Spanish, Portuguese, Chinese, and Korean. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, 5 languages.
Right. Yep. Fantastic. All right. Well, great story, Jorge. Thank you so much for joining me here today on the Social Business Engine podcast. Where would you like to send my listener online to connect with you and learn more about what you've got going on?
Sure, you can go to Corzan.com and see our site there. I can also be in your reach at LinkedIn. I go by Jorge Solorio. That's how I get connected. I'm mainly when you're running the business. I'm not in the marketing space, so I'm an insider. So if you have any questions on how to implement inside a company, feel free to reach out and see what I can share with you. Thank you for the opportunity, Bernie.
My pleasure, Jorge. Thank you so much for joining me here today.
Okay. Take care.
Well, I hope that you enjoyed my conversation with Jorge Solorio, the Industrial Americas Business Manager at Lubrizol Advanced Materials. This has been episode 183, A Strategy for Global Sales and Marketing and Team Alignment. And boy, did Jorge come prepared to share his results on marketing and sales alignment. Just love it. Hey, this episode is in cooperation with Frost Sullivan. Vengreso has partnered with Frost Sullivan on the launch of the Sales Team Alpine Retreat, STAR for short. And Vengreso is proud to be a partner for the event because our CEO, Mario Martinez Jr., is going to be presenting a session on digital selling strategies and tactics. Now, the Frost & Sullivan Star Executive MindXchange is an interactive and collaborative and PowerPoint-free event where you can brainstorm and benchmark and generate action plans with fellow sales leaders across various industries. So join us at STAR this February 7th through the 9th, 2018 in lovely Lake Tahoe, Nevada. I might add, a nice time of year to be in Lake Tahoe, where you can mix and mingle with forward-thinking sales executives and thought leaders. Now, as an event partner, we can extend a $250 savings to all Vengreso subscribers. So, to learn more about that, just go to frost.com/Vengreso. Again, frost.com/Vengreso. And we, of course, will link that up in the show notes page. Well, hey, that's a wrap for episode 183. I want to thank my guest once again, Jorge Solorio, the Industrial Americas Business Manager at Lubrizol Advanced Materials. This is Bernie Borges, CMO of Vengreso, and I'm signing off and wishing you continued success on your social business journey.
Thank you for listening to the Social Business Engine podcast. Be sure to tune in again next week to reconnect with Bernie Borges for more insights, inspiration, and practical advice on social business. Visit socialbusinessengine.com to catch even more content on social strategy that will rock your business and your career.